It's a blitz battle for the ages. Aadvika Giri versus the phenom Praggnanandhaa. In this rapid-fire format, every move counts and tactical fireworks are practically guaranteed. The game kicks off with a very symmetrical King's Indian setup. Both players fianchetto their bishops to the long diagonal, developing harmoniously and preparing for the middle game fight. As the middle game begins, White's rook to b1 signals clear intentions on the queen side. Praggnanandhaa responds by planting a pawn on e5, solidifying his grip on the center. White launches a queenside expansion, pushing pawns to gain space and create threats. Black repositions a knight to meet the advance, and the position remains tense and balanced. The knights begin to dance. Both players maneuver their pieces, probing for weaknesses and jockeying for the perfect square before the first real tactical shot is fired, and there it is, knight to e4. A brilliant sacrifice from Giri, giving up a pawn to shatter Black's coordination and unleash the power of the white pieces. A flurry of captures erupts on the e4 square. When the dust settles, the material is equal again, but White's bishop now enjoys a commanding post in the center. Praggnanandhaa plays bishop to h3. It looks like a clever active move, but it's an inaccuracy that allows White a massive opportunity. A much safer path was available. Rook to b8 would have kept things solid. After rook to a1, Black could still play bishop to h3, but now, after rook to e1, the bishop simply drops back to e6, and the position is fine. But in the game, Black plays bishop to h3, and this gives White the chance for a second, even more stunning sacrifice. Wow! Bishop takes the pawn on b7. A second brilliant sacrifice from Giri. This is absolutely decisive, ripping open the queenside and winning the exchange by force. Black is forced to capture the rook on f1, and White's king simply recaptures. White is now up the exchange with a completely dominant position. White consolidates beautifully. The bishop lands on c6, a monster piece that paralyzes Black's queenside. Praggnanandhaa, in trouble, tries to stir up some desperate counterplay on the king side. The pieces continue to maneuver. White's queen comes to f3, controlling key squares, while Black defends stubbornly, looking for any chance to get back into the game. And here, White plays pawn to h3. It's a bit slow, a slight inaccuracy that lets some of the advantage slip and gives Black a glimmer of hope. The stronger move was to strike first. Pushing the pawn to h4 immediately would have seized control. After queen to f6, bishop to d2, rook to e8, and pawn to b6, White keeps the king side completely locked down. Instead, after the move played, pawn to h3, Black gets the chance to create some real problems, and Praggnanandhaa seizes the moment. He pushes his own pawn to h4, ripping open the h-file for his queen. Suddenly, the game is incredibly sharp and complex once again. The tension on the king side is off the charts. Both players position their heavy pieces, with queens and rooks all staring at the enemy king, looking for the knockout blow. The final maneuvers begin. The game is on a knife's edge as pawns are traded and bishops are repositioned. Both sides are playing with fire, and one wrong move will be fatal. White tightens the screws, pushing the h-pawn to h4. It looks like the attack is breaking through, but Pragg has one last incredible trick up his sleeve. Bishop to d2. What a move. A stunning sacrifice from Praggnanandhaa, desperately trying to turn the tables by luring White's bishop away to expose the king, and Giri takes the bait. White's bishop captures the bishop on d2, walking right into Black's idea. Queen takes the bishop on d2, a fantastic follow-up and the only move that makes the sacrifice work. Black is suddenly taking over. The point is this. If White plays pawn to f3, the queen swings back to h6. After queen to g5, the king steps to g7, and Black is simply winning a piece. White tries to create a distraction with a pawn push, but Black's king calmly steps to h8, preparing to press the now winning attack. But here, a critical mistake from White. Queen to h4 looks active, but it walks right into a trap that should lose the game on the spot. A much safer square was available. Queen to g5, queen takes queen on g5, rook takes queen on g5, rook takes pawn on f2, king to g1. But after the move in the game, queen to h4, Praggnanandhaa has a chance to win right here. Unbelievable. In this high-stakes blitz game, Black misses the win. Queen to f4 is a shocking mistake that throws the entire advantage away. There was a simple move to trap the queen. Pawn to g5, queen to g4, rook takes pawn on f2, rook to g2, rook to f1, check. But back in the real game, queen to f4 is played, and just like that, White is back in control. White immediately punishes the mistake. The rook swings to g4, attacking the misplaced Black queen, which is forced to grab a pawn on f2, and now pawn takes pawn on g6, with check. A third brilliant sacrifice from Giri. This move tears open the cover around the black king, launching the final decisive attack, and here's the devastating follow-up. The king is forced to g7, queen to h7 is check, the king runs to f8, and rook to g2 comes in, and white is winning. And here comes the final, fatal error. Black plays, queen takes queen on h4, a check that trades queens but walks into a completely lost rook endgame. The only chance was to keep the queens on. The king had to go to g7. After queen to h7 check, king to f8, rook to g2, and queen to e1 check, black could at least keep fighting. But in the game, the queen trade on h4 hands the win to white on a silver platter. White's rook recaptures on h4 with check, and the winning sequence begins. Black's king is forced to step onto g7, right into the line of fire. Rook to h7, check! A fantastic, precise move, the only one that continues the attack and secures the win for white. There's nothing to be done. The king is forced to retreat back to f8, and now rook takes the pawn on c7. The killer blow that seals the victory, white's rook is now an unstoppable monster. The winning plan is simple. After pawn to d5, the rook swings to c8 with check. The king moves to g7, and the rook simply takes the rook on g8, and it's all over. In a completely hopeless position, black plays rook to f4. It's a mistake that just speeds up the inevitable. The best try for resistance was different, pushing the d-pawn to d5. After rook to c8 check, king to g7, the rooks are traded on g8, and black could struggle on, though the position is still lost. But after the move played, rook to f4, the end comes very quickly. White plays pawn to b6, a simple, clean move that shuts down any last-ditch counterplay. Black gives a final feudal check with the rook to h8, but it changes nothing. White's king calmly steps up to g2, escaping all checks and leaving black with no hope. And at this moment, Praggnanandhaa resigned. A fantastic fighting game, but White's position is completely winning. Here's the kind of unstoppable sequence he saw coming. Black might try rook to g4 check, but the king just steps up to f3. After rook to g5, the g-pawn pushes to g7 with check, and after the rook takes, the white rook on c7 will clean up everything.